This episode is brought to you by Americas Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the Archer.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Arcast. My name is Buddha. I'm solo dolo today, but I'm very blessed to have the guest that we have with us today. She came as a recommendation all the way from Phoenix, from our good friend Garrett. Shout out to Garrett, wherever you're at, man. Hearing a little bit about her story, I was anxious to get her in here, and I'm very blessed that she's in the studio with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause. Get up out your seats to our friend Lindy. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming down. How was the ride down here?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah?
Trying not to speed. That's the hard part.
No, I feel you. Well, it's a blessing to have you down here. We got to touch base a little bit ago. I heard a little bit about your story, and I'm just like, I was in awe reading some of those things, man. So thank you so much for coming and blessing us today.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, or as people from San Antonio would say, San Antonio.
Yes, I was thinking of Que Paso El Paso, my bad. Yeah, I love San Antonio. That's what's up. You're from there?
Yeah, I'm from San Antonio. My family's out there. I've traveled a lot, but that's where the home roots come from for sure.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Did you have any siblings growing up?
I had two siblings. I have two younger sisters. I'm the oldest of the litter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that's cool. And how long were you in Texas for?
I was in Texas for about the first 10 years of my life. Now, it's like I said, it's home base, so I always go back there at least. I try at least once a year, but I've been all over ever since then. I've been in Arizona since I was like 12, so I feel like I'm more of an Arizona native at this point.
Oh, that's what's up. Did you have both of your parents growing up?
I did, but they were separated. I was a love child between two best friends.
Oh, okay.
So they're still really good friends to this day, which freaks me out, but no, I was just a love child between them two.
So they never lived like together or anything like that the whole time?
Well, they were together for the first couple of years of my life, and up until I think I was like 2 or 3, and then they parted ways, and they never went back together ever since. But they always had a pretty good relationship between them two, at least.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said that you didn't come here till you were around 12, so you went to elementary school and middle school and stuff out there in Texas?
No, so I lived in New Mexico for a couple of years too. So when I was in New Mexico, I started elementary school out there. Right into middle school is kind of when I came to Arizona. So I was in middle school in, I believe it was Phoenix. It was Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, no, Tempe. I'm sorry. It was in Tempe, Arizona. And then I went to high school at Tempe High School over in Tempe as well, right next to ASU.
Oh, okay. And I noticed a lot in the story, like from Texas, New Mexico to Phoenix, like there was a lot of moving around. Were your parents involved in like the type of work like that?
Yeah. So like my dad, was in a job that he moved around a lot, and I stayed with my mom for most of the time. My mom, we lived in Texas for a long time, and then she got out a job. She got married, and then we went to New Mexico to be with her ex-husband, and then we moved here whenever she got a huge job opportunity, and we came out here. So
that's what's up. And how were you in school? Were you good at being a student, troublemaker, class clown? What's up?
Yeah, I would definitely call me the class clown. At least for the first, like when I was in middle school, I was the class clown. Once I got into high school, it was more when I started to chill out a little bit because I started to do sports and martial arts, so it kind of kept me preoccupied and gave me motivation to like kind of be a good kid. But before that, it was straight trouble. I used to hustle the boys because I was really good at basketball, and I used to like put a beanie on over my head, over my hair,
and real?
Wear guy clothes, and I would play them in basketball and like hustle them for their money.
For real?
And then I would like, as a power trip, take my beanie off and show them that I was a girl just to be an ass and embarrass them.
For real? You used to do that? That's nuts. So you're just naturally athletic. I know you said, we're talking a little bit before the show, you said you were into gymnastics and martial arts. Is that something that you've always been in love with?
I've always been in love with sports in general. Like when I was a kid, my ultimate goal was to try each sport at least once. Like everyone else, doctor, president. And I was like, no, I want to try each sport at least once just to see if I like it. And then there was just a couple that I fell in love with along the way that really stuck.
How long did you do that for? Like the martial arts and stuff? Is that the one that you did the most?
Yeah, the martial arts is the one I did the most. I remember it was Valentine's Day and my dad took me out to dinner for Valentine's Day, and I was getting in trouble for fighting and hustling all the boys at school. He took me to this martial arts studio, and I fell in love really quick, and I've stuck around for martial arts for about 10 years.
Dang, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So I know you said you were bouncing around. At what age do you feel like you started dabbling like with substances? Like when did that come into your life?
That came really when I was about like 16, 17.
Okay.
I think it was a slow progression for me because I had that martial arts that was kind of holding me accountable. It was like once in a while I go to a high school party. All of them are going every weekend and I go every once in a while because I was super into the competitions. Like I was a Triple Crown state champion. I was world ranked. So like I was really like on my A game. But the second I remember the first time I got drunk and I came home, I'm leaning on the pool table. I'm like, I'm not drunk, I'm fine. But it was a slow progression for me because of doing that. But I remember having this feeling inside of me, even the first time that I got drunk, I was like, ooh, I want to do this more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that quickly awakened for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Both my mom's an alcoholic and my dad's a drug addict.
Okay.
So, it was kind of normal to see that kind of behavior throughout my life. I never, what other households would see is like, oh my goodness, no. Like it was for me, it was like, that's a normal thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was anything bad. I just thought it was the normal thing that you do.
Okay. So not to like go too deep into that, but that was stuff that you would see growing up. Like, I guess for me, I'm just curious because I mean, you're into sports and you're doing all of these different things. Were your parents like, were they struggling with substances or were they sober? Like, how did that,
So it kind of felt like I lived a double life. Like my martial arts life was like this separate entity where it was all good. And then there was like the home life where it was like, not all bad, but there was a lot of bad in there. My mom suffered with alcohol and she would be in abusive relationships. So it was a lot of those type of situations where I'm being put between a rock and a hard place where I'm defending my mother while she's intoxicated, laying hand on full grown men because like I'm defending my mother. So I was put into some really rough situations. And I tried to keep those two lives really separate. So it really felt like I was living a double life during that period of my time because there was like this really good thing that even my family was really into. But on the weekends and on those nights when nobody else is around, that's when the chaos happened.
Wow. I mean, I think I never had those types of like opportunities. I think we did like T-ball and stuff, but my mom was a single mom. So it costs a lot of money to keep kids in sports and do things like that. And, my son now, he's in Pop Warner. My daughter has done dancing. But if it wasn't for my wife putting those things together, I would have no understanding of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's super cool that you did that because, from a lot of fighters, people that I've met, they tend to be like the most humble, most respectful, like genuine people. And I don't know if it's because they didn't have anything to prove. Like they just know they could freaking beat your ass in a heartbeat if they had to. You know what I'm saying?
Might be an underlining reason for it. But I mean, no, the thing about martial arts is that it's there's a lot of principles that are taught whenever you're doing martial arts, like respect, discipline, and things along those lines.
Yeah.
So there's the meditative form of martial arts that a lot of people just see the punching and the kicking and the blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like they don't know, like they don't pay attention to the meditation, the self-discipline that comes behind that, which I truly believe has made recovery easier for me, to be honest with you, because I had that standpoint with learning those type of like principles. Like some of the principles that are in martial arts are the same ones that are written on the wall when you walk into an AA room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that part became easy for me because of me doing martial arts for that long.
That's cool. All right. Well, and then at what age do you feel like, I know you said you had gotten drunk a couple times at parties and you really liked that feeling. Was it one of those things where, I know you said it was a slow progression, but from the first time, did it just become something you wanted to do regularly, or did it like slowly just start kind of taking you down?
So because of seeing my mom and my dad with their substance use, it was slow. It was slow. It was I had this stigma, and I think a lot of people can relate to the fact of like, I don't want to be like my mom and my dad when it comes to this aspect. A lot of things I love about my parents, but when it came to that, I was like, I don't want to do it. So it was slow for me because I had that thought in my mind of like, I don't want to be that. And I resisted it really hard until I reached about 18. And that's when I stopped doing martial arts. There was a big situation that happened that kind of, made me dwindle away from it. And the second that martial arts left my life, it was like, all right, cool. Drugs and alcohol is going to be my new, thing that fills me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you mind going into what that situation was? What was it that changed?
No, you're fine. When I was doing martial arts, I was with a specific family that I did it with for years, and we just had a falling out. Like we weren't agreeing on things. There was things that were like promised and everything else, and then I was in a relationship with my instructor's son, which is never a good thing.
Yeah.
And that dwindled out, so it just kind of felt like I was being pushed out. And when I got pushed out, because I had set that relationship so heavy in my life, because it was like, it almost felt like I had a normal family and then I had, this chaos family at home. And so when I felt that they left, it was like, okay, now I'm off to the races, because this is what I know fills a hole inside of me. And I've seen it fill holes in other people around me as well.
And looking at it now, like in hindsight from back then, do you feel like any of those feelings like of abandonment even stemmed from with your parents not being together type of a thing?
Yes. My dad was in and out of incarceration after about 10 years old. That was definitely a part of it. My mom was very focused on, not only her alcoholism, but her relationship with men. So it was very much where I felt like I was alone and trying to navigate that. And also being the oldest sibling and taking care of my two younger sisters. And most of my one younger sister, my other one's a lot younger than me, but that and losing that relationship with that family from the martial arts too. So it just kind of felt like every person that I cared about was just dropping like flies. And now I had figured out this substance that I knew that made me feel whole in some type of way. So it was like easy to go to that, because then it made me not have to think, not have to feel all those abandonment and all those issues that, I didn't even understand were issues at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I think that's such a critical point that you just said is, most of the things that we see in this world of recovery is like, most people can't even see that there's a mess in the first place. So how do you clean something that you don't even see as a mess?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I know I thought it was like normal for everybody to be kind of like living that life, living double lives and everything else. So I was like, am I just being a puss? Like, you know what I mean? Am I being a pussy? Like, am I just like not handling life how we're supposed to handle it? Not realizing that the things that were put in front of me weren't things that are considered quote unquote normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was hard for me to really get over that hump, if that makes sense. Or like, it was more, I'm going to run away from that, because now I know I have this substance that's going to feel all those negative emotions that I was feeling about my life. And
especially like at 18 too. Like, I think there's so much pressure. It's crazy how we consider people to be like adults at 18, right? And I look back at those ages. I was like, I hadn't even graduated from high school at 18 yet. I had dropped out, like done dumb shit, you know? There's no way, like I'm just thrown into the wolves, like supposed to be able to survive out here through all this shit, So like at that time, were you independent? Were you living with your parents? Were you trying to be on your own? Were you working?
So once I stopped doing the martial arts deal, I got into bartending and club promoting. So I started working as a bartender.
That's a toxic ass environment too, bro.
And you wonder why I'm here. Okay. Like, I literally jumped from being like, I was a instructor to all these other people to now I'm serving drinks, working in bars, and even then I'm like, having like a really good time, to be honest with you. Like there was a good time in that period where I'm slinging drinks, I'm having fun, I'm partying with friends, I'm smoking weed, doing a little coke on the weekends. And it seemed like it was normal, because if you're part of that lifestyle, like that type of industry, it is normal, know? So it felt like it was normal because everyone around me was doing it, me not knowing that it was not normal in my situation, but it was crazy. It was me drinking or me bartending. And then I was drinking so much behind the bar and like drinking so much and getting so intoxicated at the places that I worked that they're like, why don't you just promote? Because you're the life of the party. And we know that we can use, like, you get people through the door, but also like, you're a mess, so we can't have you slinging drinks behind the bar. I should have known then, right? But like they kicked me off from behind the bar, and they're like, "Hey, just club promote. You're good at getting people through the door and making sure people have a good time."
Yeah, and once again, that goes to the whole thing about like if the how do you clean a mess if you don't see it? These people, without even realizing it, were kind of like enabling you.
Oh, 100%.
You know, instead of being like, hey, Lindy, like maybe you shouldn't be drunk on the first hour of your shift type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And then like it was feeding my ego, and 100%. Like, I'm the life of the party. Okay, yeah, let me bring some people in. You know, like it gave me like a little power trip walking in with like 20 people behind me because they knew I was gonna bring a party and bring fun, and like you said, like not anyone knowing that they were enabling that behavior. I even have some of those friends on Facebook who see me now and they're like, did I contribute to what ended up happening? I'm like, no, you're good. That was all me. But I'm like, I love the cocktails you made me. It's fine. Like,
that's funny. That's what's up. And so like at what point from that time of like being 18, having that fun, and it's so crazy. I'm thinking like all these situations in my head. It is fun to a certain point when you're younger because you're around all of these people, you're enjoying drinks, people are laughing. But then in reality, like sometimes it's like you notice like friends kind of drift away. Mm-hmm. And then it's like those same people that you're still partying with like 5-6 years down the road. It's like, it's not really that fun anymore. It's just like a bunch of broken people trying to find the pieces together.
Trying to have a broken family, basically.
For real.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I was underage working in all of these bars. Mind you, none of them knew I was underage. I'm sorry, guys, for you guys letting me in. You guys probably could have lost some liquor licenses. But it was right around, it was 5 years that I was in that environment. And like when I look back on it, because of how blacked out I was, because of how much drugs I was doing, whether it was ecstasy, Molly, mushrooms, smoking weed, or just a cocktail of them all, mind you, I barely remember those 5 years. Like when I sat down and looked at my timeline, I'm like, I thought that was like a year span. But then when I look back, I'm like, no, that was 5 years of my life. And I literally remember maybe 6 months of it.
Damn, and that's a lot of different substances too. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, and it's funny because like little by little, you know, once you start putting these substances in your body, your judgment gets clouded a little bit. You're not thinking as clear. You're a little bit slower. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you have any type of fear, like trying different drugs, or was it just all like it's party drugs, we're all having fun type of thing?
I remember the first time I tried ecstasy, and I remember I was terrified as I'm like putting it in my mouth, right? But then like once I did that, the fear of drugs, and any type of drug, mind you, it felt like it dwindled away. Like because I think I fell so deeply in love with that feeling that it was like, okay, if this is it, I don't mind this. I don't see why, like at the time, like I don't see why people call this bad. You know what I mean? And so there was that initial fear, but once it hit my body, that fear went away. So every time you put a line in front of me, I was one of those. You put a line in front of me, it could be green, it could be blue, it could be white. I don't care. I'm putting it up my nose because I just know it's not going to make me feel the emotions that I'm feeling. Because I was literally just in go mode. Like I don't remember the emotions that I had during that time. I don't remember the relationships that I had during that time. You know, there's even people that I've met in recovery that remember me from that point in time. And they're like, hey, Lindy. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just, I don't remember you because that's how bad it was at that point. But I was just so lost in the delusion that I just don't.
I got a quote. I'm curious to know what you think of it. I had a client one time say, the age that you are, and I mean this like, you know, like figuratively speaking, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the age that you are when you start dabbling into substances is the same age that you're at when you decide to get off of them.
I believe that. I in some ways, not in all ways, you know what I mean? Because you can learn from the life experiences. I believe that, but I also believe that the second that you get sober and start doing the work, it's like all those ages catch up really quickly if you let them, and if you're willing to soak in all the lessons that you were supposed to learn during that point in time.
Fill in all those emotions at once that you've been suppressing for the past 5 years. All right, and continuing on, like 5 years of this. Did it continue to get worse even after the 5 years? Like at what point did you decide like, man, I gotta switch some things up here? So
it definitely got worse. And then I fell into a relationship. When I say I fell into a relationship, I don't even remember how we got into a relationship. And I got pregnant with my first daughter. And when I got pregnant with my first daughter, that was the first time I had been sober for about like 7 years. Like it was just and it was during that pregnancy. The only reason I found out I was pregnant, mind you, is because I went out to have a couple of drinks and I got sick. And I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. Why am I getting sick after a few drinks? And I took a pregnancy test and lo and behold, I'm pregnant. And that was the only time I remember getting sober before this last stint of sobriety. And I was able to stay sober for the pregnancy and a couple months after. And that was the only time I had those type of moments of clarity. I was like, wow, what I was doing was crazy. But I thought because I was sober during my pregnancy that like, okay, it's going to be fine from here on out.
Yeah, like
now,
a pat on the back. You're able to do it whenever.
Yeah, now you have a kid on the way. You're in a relationship. You have a house. Okay, now my life's getting normal. So now I can put that stuff behind me. That's what at least the perception that I had, and not realizing that I still had this spirituality and that I still, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic because I just still didn't believe it at that time.
Okay. And not to go back, I don't know if this is during, but I have on one of the notes here about something that happened with the Glendale PD. When was this situation?
This is actually after. So this is
actually after.
So this is actually coming up actually. So after I had my daughter for about 3 months, and I went out drinking for the first time since I had stopped drinking after I had my kid, before I had my kid. And I was supposed to go out for a night. I ended up on a 4-day bender at a friend's house, left my kid with her grandparent. They thought I was supposed to be home the next day. I wasn't home for 4 days later.
Ooh, man.
And when I mean the disease took a hold of me really quick, it did. And I finally went home after 4 days. And it was like off to the races, and I feel like it was worse than it was before, but it really wasn't. I just was right back to where I was. It turned into drinking, and Coke. And then it slowly from Coke, it turned into meth. And then I was using meth as like my schedule to take care of my daughter. Like that's not normal. But at the time, like I'm just so caught in the illusion that I don't see it. And then I started using heroin to bring me down from the meth. So I'm taking care of this like newborn baby, and I'm using meth and heroin, and I'm drinking like a bottle a day. And my father, who, like I said, is a drug addict, moves in with me, and he came in with pure intentions of trying to help me because he could see that I was drowning. But like someone who's already drowning can't try and save somebody else. Yep. And instead of it becoming a situation where it was us helping each other, it turned into us making the situation worse together. It turned into we were both selling drugs out of the house. We had numerous amount of ammunition, and that was inside our garage, and it turned into a full-blown trap house. And I mean, in a matter of like 6 months, it wasn't like it was a slow thing. Like it just took off. And I started to realize that we were getting watched, but also I didn't know if I was just paranoid from the meth.
From all the G.
I'm like, is this the meth or am I actually getting watched? Like, just that confusion. And I remember I had my moment of clarity kind of in that period of time, and I said, okay, I'm gonna get sober. And so I decided I'm gonna move out of that house. My dad was gonna move out of the house. We're gonna go our separate ways. And as we're moving out of the house, the day we're moving out of the house, mind you, the house is empty besides like a couch and a crib. And my house gets raided by Glendale PD. Wow. And it was insane. I mean, at this point, I'm 87 pounds soaking wet, and I'm 5'7", so I'm tall. And yeah, my dad got taken, my dude got taken, my best friend got taken, and I'm sitting there with my daughter in my hand, and I actually trying to hide all the shit. Like I had paraphernalia in my hand, and I broke it into the toilet to flush it, and then my hand is gushing blood. So I have one hand gushing blood, my kid on the other arm, as these cops are breaking down my front door, and yeah, my house got raided and everybody got taken. And then they told me if they find one more substance in the house, that they're going to take my daughter. So they were trying to reason with me. They were even like, if you go to treatment, we're not going to take your kid, like do it. But if we find one more substance in this house, you're gone. We're taking your kid. And I was sitting on the couch and I find a roach, dude. And when I mean it's a roach, I mean it's the pit end of the roach. And I try stuffing it into the couch cushion right next to me. And they said, that's it.
Oh, damn. They were just paying attention.
That's it. And yeah, they took my daughter away from me. And I got arrested. That mugshot is not my prettiest mugshot, and there's quite a few of them. So,
wow.
Yeah. And it was kind of messed up, and not to say anything about the PD, but as I'm getting arrested, my dad, told them hey, do whatever you need to, but just don't mess with my daughter, Yeah. And, they told him that before when he was getting into the car, and I didn't get arrested till 2 hours later. And they literally he was walking into the van to go to the prison, and I'm walking into the jail. So they had us cross paths. And I don't know if this was on purpose or not, whatever it may be. But my dad's like, are you serious? He's like, you guys said you weren't going to take her. And one of the cops made a smart ass comment to him, and yeah, my dad, while he's going through the booking process, I'm going through the booking process. He's just in his head thinking, oh, wow, like my kid got taken because of this whole ordeal.
Wow. Man. And on this, on the notes, it said both of your daughters. Did you have two?
Yeah. So I do have two daughters. So when I got arrested, I didn't know at the time, and I didn't find out till later that I was actually pregnant with my second daughter.
Oh, wow.
So as I got arrested, and they arrest me for weed out of everything that was there. I'm like, everything. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool.
The roach.
I got arrested for the roach. And I went back home, and I'm like, I'm going to stay sober. So they let me out within a couple hours, and I go back to the new house that we had just moved into. And I tried detoxing on my own. So I'm detoxing off of meth, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, alcohol, and I proceed to break everything in my house, have a seizure because now my daughter's taken away. So I'm like, I got to get straight. Well, I find out that you could pass a drug test off of meth if you do certain things. I'm not going to say how you do that out here, but like I found out you could pass. So like my addict mind is like, hey, I'm still going to get high. Just I'm going to try and pass drug tests so I can still get my kid back because I'm still in that delusion, right? I didn't have the proper time like in a treatment or anything like that to take me away from that delusion. And a month into using that, I start to like realize I'm like, because when you're using, you don't, women's bodies are different. And I'm like, I think I'm pregnant. And, the guilty part of me is like, doesn't want to share this part. But the truth is that I used throughout my whole pregnancy with my second daughter up until the day she was born. Yeah. And that's why both of them got taken away because I was already in an active case with my oldest. And then here I am now giving birth to my daughter who was methamphetamine exposed. So they take her away from me right away.
I really do feel, and thank you for sharing. I know it's hard to open up sometimes, but to me, I feel like that's a super important thing to speak on is because, I mean, when we're using the shame, the guilt, these thoughts that are coming in when in reality, these drugs are designed to keep you addicted to them, and I mean, only something truly evil, in my opinion. I always think of this, for example, we had a client a long time ago that I remember she was on her last little thing with DPS, I guess is what it is, right? CPS, whatever. And they had said, if you come and you get treatment, we'll keep your daughter and everything, but this is your last chance. Like if you don't finish this program, you're out of here. And it's just crazy to me how temptation, how the enemy or whatever it is, like how it works against anything that you're trying to do, especially in recovery. She ended up running into a dude. And I mean, it's the same for dudes. A lot of the dudes end up running into females here or whatever, but it's like the guy must have been, the enemy in disguise must have been like, had that wool over her eyes or whatever, but she ended up leaving with him. Yeah. And I just remember going home that day and just being really sad because it was just like, man, like that was her last chance. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's important because people need to see how deep the addiction can get, especially those who don't understand addiction,
No, 100%. Like when it came to like, that ordeal, like me and my dude were still using together. The guy that I had the two kids with, me and him, continued to use together. Like he got high, with me while I'm pregnant. You know what I mean? We're doing this at the same time, but it's my body, and I'm the one, going through the situation. So when I had my daughter, what I go back to is like that situation. Like I feel it's so important to tell people because it's such an unspoken thing about like women pregnant that are like having babies or getting pregnant. It's the reality. That's just the truth of what's happening. I've seen, a homeless pregnant woman panhandling on the side of the street. And like, I feel for them because that was me. Yeah. It's like, luckily there's a way more opportunity now than programs, but like even just 5 years ago, there weren't those opportunities. And I'm so scared of DCS finding out that I'm using that I'm like hiding myself and not getting the proper help that I need because I'm scared it's going to ruin my case with my oldest daughter. And mind you, this is the delusion, right? That I'm not asking for help, but like, that's what our thought process is when we're in that delusion is like, if I ask for help, then I'm just going to get in more trouble with DCS. So I'm still not going to get my kid back, not realizing because if I actually probably did ask for help, I might have been in a better situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just a delusion. It's like, oh no, I'm so terrified and I'm such in fear of this situation that I'm not allowing myself to get the proper help because all I want is this idea of a perfect family, but I'm not even taking care of myself to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
And it's an unspoken thing, and it's like, no, it's real, people. Like, and the women that don't talk about it and have a lot of guilt and shame around it, you know, when I've shared it, I've had multiple women come up to me and be like, thank you for sharing that. And that's because another woman shared that with me. Like, if another woman wouldn't have shared that with me, I probably would have never spoke about it. Yeah, like it's just the truth of how this disease works.
No, I mean, I think it's incredible that you're so strong in your recovery now, that you're able to open up about those things, because, you know, my only hope and prayer with this podcast is that whoever's listening on the other end is, you know, that you're speaking to them right now, that you could help them go into that right direction. Because, I mean, we know substances want to get you alone. They want to get you in your head so they can speak and say, well, all the bullshit they need to say, you know, the insecurities, the fear. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy how delusional our minds are, and also like how much fear controls us. Even when we're using, there is fear. That's one of the most prominent emotions that stay present for some people when they're using, is like the fear of legal issues, the fear of judgment from family. And it's like, if you just let yourself ask for that help, you might be giving yourself a freeing experience, but we're just so caught up in our own shit, we can't even fucking see it. And it's like, I hope that you get to see it. And then unfortunately for me, like, I was able to see it. It just took a lot longer for me to be able to see it.
Like, how long did you stay in that relationship? It's like a codependency pretty much.
Yeah. So after I had my second daughter, I got sober for a little bit, and he continued to keep using. And I was just so codependent on him. Like, I was locking myself in a room trying to stay sober. Like, no program, no nothing. I'm locking myself in a room, like, while he's getting high out there. And I'm just like, I got to do this for the kids. I got to do this for the kids. But I was so codependent on him. And like, we hadn't touched each other in months. Like, we hadn't actually had a legit conversation in months. But I was just so codependent on even his presence. That it stopped me from going and seeking the help that I needed, because I was like, I need to save him too. Like, man. I was like, I want to get saved, but like, I need to save him too, because I felt this guilt that I got him into this situation. Right. So I'm like, it's my guilt. Two, it's my codependency, that I'm like, okay, I need to save you too, to be able to get to where I actually need to be. So just come with me. Let's get help. But like, I'm actually for once wanting help, but I'm so codependent on this person that I'm like, I'm not going to do it unless they do it too. Yeah.
Wow. And how long did that last? How long were you in that delusion?
It was a good like 8 months. So it was like 8 to 9 months. I stayed sober by myself for like 3 or 4 months, and then I remember there was one situation where you know, he hadn't used for like a month, and I see him like run into the room and run to the back room. And I'm like, oh no, I know what you're doing, motherfucker. I know exactly what you're doing. Right. And he goes into the back room, and I see, I like break down the door, cause I'm a toxic girl at this point in time. So I break down the door. I'm like, what are you doing? You know? And he like has a pipe in his hand, and like, at the time, it feels like he gave me the perfect excuse to relapse. Cause I literally looked at him, and I was like, if you get high, I'm going to get high. And you know how long I haven't been using, so it's going to be your fault if I get high. So like, this is my justification, right? Like making myself the victim, even though it's like, I just really want to get high. And now you've given me an excuse to, because I can blame you and I can feel better about it.
That's funny.
So I legit like was like, hey, if I get high right now, it's on you. It's your fault. And
so the lighter.
I'm already lighting it just as I'm saying this. Like, torch is going, dude. And I'm just like, this is your fault. This is your fault.
That's funny.
And yeah, I got high for another 3 months. And then the same situation that you were saying about the other girl, like DCS was like, hey, if you don't go to treatment and get help, like, this is it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I waited another 2 months because I wanted him to go to treatment with me, like codependency, and it's like me trying to save somebody else while trying to save myself. And I waited another 2 months, and then I finally got to the point where I was like, what am I doing? Like I remember, and this is where I had one of my first spiritual awakenings, was actually while I was still getting high, and I didn't understand it until I read the book, right? Was like
the God shot,
right? And I'm sitting there, and I was raised with a Catholic family, but like when I went to ones that speak Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. So like I was like all really foreign to me. But the one thing that I always saw was people dropping on their knees and praying.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I've always seen in any type of religion, right?
Ooh, yeah.
And I remember I had this moment of like pure desperation. And I remember I'm on my tweaker couch. I'm doing a little tweaky wood project in my living room. And dropped to my knees and I'm like, I don't know what's out there. I don't know what you are. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, I need help. Like, I need to get out of this and I don't know how to, and I don't know how to ask for help. And maybe not in those lamest words, right? But like, it was definitely something along those lines. And I'm crying as I'm saying this for sure. And like, it's like a scene from a movie sometimes when I think about it, because I'm like, I'm literally just in this like fetal position, just like, I need help. And what's crazy is like I had not been disconnected from my mom for a couple years. And my mom called me and she's like, hey, I just got a new job. I know you don't have insurance. Do you want to get on my insurance? And I'm like, well, by the way, Mom, I have a DCS case with both of my kids. I'm using meth in a tweaker trailer out in the middle of Chino Valley. So you hadn't spoken with
her in a while?
I hadn't spoken. Like, she was aware of the situation, but me and her were not close. So I just unloaded on her and she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's get you into rehab. And, I start shopping. Once I figure out what my insurance is, I start shopping around, and then I finally called, the facility that I went to and they were like, okay, cool. We can get you in. And then mind you, I'm in Chino Valley because I had moved to Chino Valley because that's where my kids were for the DCS case. And I'm come to Phoenix, which is weird because there's so many treatment centers in Prescott, but like for some reason I got a hold of a place that was in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And I finally had that moment of like, okay, I'm doing this. And I remember packing my bag and this man that I'm so codependent on that I stopped doing this. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving to go to rehab today. And he says, cool. And he closes the door and he walks out and he goes to work. And I'm just like, I've been sitting here for 7 months just wanting you to get help with me. And the last thing you say to me before I leave to go to rehab is cool. I don't know if it was also because he didn't believe me, but like.
No, I think it's important. I mean, I think about different situations in my life, relationships. It's when they say relationships are 100, it's absolutely right. Like, I've been married for 11 years and my wife, it's like, I need you. But at the same time, she's like, I need you as well. I mean, it's very difficult to be given 100%. Like, I feel like there was good intentions with what you were doing, like, I want you to get help. But when it's not reciprocated the same way, it's kind of like, well, damn. Like, I think eventually maybe it was that same God shot, that same voice talking to you that's kind of opening your eyes for the first time. Like, look, he ain't investing as much into this as you are.
That's what it felt like. And it almost was like a good thing that he had that response. Because if he would have had the response like, no, stay with me, like, we'll figure this out together, I don't know what I would have done. So I like there's those weird things that you're grateful for, right? Like I'm grateful for the fact that the cops found the roach. You know, I'm grateful for the fact that he said cool and walked out the door, because those are all pivotal moments in my story today that led me to the life that I have today.
Amen. That's real.
Like, legit, like, that's what it is. And like him, if he would have said something else, who knows if I would have waited, if I would have died, who knows? Like, especially because that was my last shot with DCS, right? Was that moment. And I'm walking in and I'm like, okay, you just basically signed my go away pass. And that, even though it felt like it hurt so bad at that moment in time, I'm so blessed for that today.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's crazy to hear you say that. One of the things that is similar with pretty much every single story from any human being that we've had in here is that crying out part. Like there comes a certain point where it's like you're so empty. You think the rock bottom is the end, but you can get deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there comes a certain point when it's like you're just so empty and you don't know what else to do, that you start, I don't know what it is. Even like people that aren't that faithful, they just get on their knees and they pray for something. You always hear that. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people go through situations and they're like, God, man, please. You know what I'm saying? But like Jeremiah 33:3 says, call unto me and I will answer thee and shew thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Crying out to him. I think that's such an important part of it, because it gives you that opportunity, like to kind of see things for the first time, and for me, that's just a huge part of it that I really love is hearing when people start talking about that. To me, it's because we've had those situations too. Everyone that we've talked to that's sober, they've had those situations where they had to cry out, and that's where that real change started.
Oh, you're giving
happen.
me goosebumps just talking about it.
It's amazing. It's beautiful.
It is, and like I hear this from other people, and I'm like, oh, I know that experience, and then it's almost like it's like a different type of high, right? Like when I hear people saying that they had that experience, because when I think back to that day, I'm like, it gives me that own like crazy, like, wow, like I didn't know how pivotal that like, because I even going to rehab and everything else after that, I didn't know how important that moment of dropping to my knees was until, I was able to have that clarity to be like, oh wow, that was a pivotal point, and I had no idea.
That's awesome. I think that's fantastic. And I know you said that you hadn't talked to your mom for a while. During that time, was your mom sober?
No, my mom was not sober at the time. She was in a toxic relationship, and she was going through her own deal. There was a traumatic event that happened for her during that point in time, and we were just disconnected. And like, some people like cry out to their family when they were using. I was kind of the opposite. I was the hermit who didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah,
'cause I knew what I was doing was bad. Like I knew she knew something was up, but she was caught up in her own shit that she was like not worried about it, because I always somewhat took care of myself. So she was like, she just didn't know what was going on.
Would you even say, like, I mean, it's interesting because even when we're in our addiction, I feel like God can still utilize us. Mm-hmm. Like, do you feel like that her even giving you a phone call was kind of like a...
Oh, no, 100%. I dropped and prayed to my knees. And then the next day I get a call from my mom saying, hey, I'm putting you on my insurance. Cause like, I'm sorry, it's whether it's state or private, like and especially back then when access wasn't shit.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have any really big options. I'm getting told to go to treatment, but I'm like, can you guys tell me where to go? Like, I don't know where to go. I'm just freeballing it, looking on Google, calling a bunch of places, trying to figure out what to do. And I mean, people are still doing that to this day, not knowing that there's more resources out there.
It's nuts, man. I mean, it's gotten so much worse too, but we'll go into that a little bit later. But no, I think that's fantastic. So you went to your first treatment center, and that was in Scottsdale?
It was my first inpatient. Like I did a couple of outpatients, got high throughout the whole outpatient. Yeah. Sold dope to a couple people in outpatient. Don't do that.
Don't do that, guys.
Don't do that. That was just a different time. But that was my first time actually going into inpatient and staying. And like when people say like, if you want to get to rehab, you'll get to rehab. Like it's true. Like I wanted to go. I had that moment. I was like, bags are packed. Let's go. And like, it was in Scottsdale. I'm in Chino Valley. I have no really big resources. So I love this woman, and she was my my DCS case aide. And it's crazy because I was like one of her first cases, but like I still talk to her to this day, mind you.
That's cool.
And I called her and I'm like, I need to get to this hotel to get on a shuttle to go to Sky Harbor to get to treatment. And she's like, okay, how are you paying for the shuttle? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I kind of got honest with her. I'm like, I'm going to sell my last bag of dope and then pay for the shuttle. And she's like, no, I'll pay for your shuttle to go to treatment. And she drove me to the hotel. I jumped on a shuttle. I was at Sky Harbor Airport, and I still have a bag in my pocket, mind you. I'm walking into treatment. And I remember even when I was there, I've still had that second thought. Like I'm sitting there, my mom's going to call me an Uber from the airport to the treatment center. And I'm like, I can go on a sick one right now. Like I'm back to my old stomping grounds where I know people. I can go party, like I said, that old club scene. I'm like, I can go back to that right now, or I can go to rehab. And so like that delusion was still there. Like I'm like, okay, I can go get high and do some more shit, or I can go to treatment.
Y'all done fucked up and put me back in the hood
right now. Put me back on my stomping ground.
Yeah,
dude. Like, let's go.
Oh, man.
And no, then my mom called me. Another gotcha. My mom called me. She's like, oh, hey, are you there? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. And she called me the Uber. And as I remember I'm walking into the front doors of this treatment center. Also, don't recommend this. I'm pouring the last of mind you, stuff doesn't taste good. I'm pouring the last of the bag in my mouth.
Oh, shit.
Just walking into this treatment center. And I remember I threw it away in the front desk, and I just see her come back with like gloves, like to pull it out of the trash in the front desk. And I'm like, ooh, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I think you're so good at hiding and stuff too, huh? Is it inconspicuous walking in there? Like, they don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, it's fine.
It's funny. Man, all right. So, like, at what point, though, like, I mean, it seems like you started to listen to that voice for the first time, right? God was showing you directions, which you needed to go. Where was that moment when you finally started, like, when you saw that change in your life? Like, when did you become sober?
You know, it wasn't the first week, a couple weeks in treatment. Like, even my plan when I even got to treatment was like, all right, I'm going to do this, make DCS happy, and then I'm going to go out and do what I want to do. And I think it was about a month into treatment, maybe a month. And I remember,
Man, it takes time.
It does. There was this woman there. There's two women at the treatment center that I went to, Bree and Randy. If you guys are listening to this, I love both of you. They both talked to me about their experience as being mothers that used and mothers that were away from their children to be able to get sober, and them coming to take the time to speak with me about their experience. I remember she came into my room, like she worked at the clinic, and she came to the house that I was at, came into my room and sat down and talked to me. And her doing that for me, I remember it was that conversation. It was the first time I cried, mind you. Like, I'm a tough girl. Like, it's hard to get me to cry. I only used to cry when I was mad. Now I'm a pussy. I cry all the time. But like during that time, I was like, no, I don't cry. Like, I was raised by, a tough biker dad and a really like raging mom. So like, I had that first breakdown moment where I just cried my eyes out. And it was that moment where it was like, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. And I remember, because it wasn't a 12-step based program, but the couple of the BHGs there, they were like, why don't you, start sliding the blue book over to me? And I'm like,
Yeah.
And I started to read it. And then one of the crazy things is when our house got raided, my dad had an AA book and a 12 and 12 at our old house, and I had no idea. But I remembered seeing it at our house, but it was just on our bookshelf that we never touched because I'm not reading books when I'm taking it. You know what I mean? So I had my ex, because I would go do visitations with my kids while I was in treatment. I had him bring me those books, and I got a sponsor while I was in there. And I remember thinking this is a load of shit and really believing it for the first time reading it. I'm like, what the heck? And then I'm like, I think it was more about alcoholism it was we agnostics. Because like I didn't believe in the God thing, even though I had that spiritual moment that I remember couldn't identify at that time.
Yeah, I
read We Agnostics, and I was like, there's a part where it talks about having faith in the substance because I didn't have faith in anything else. And I was like, oh God, how true that is. And then that's when it really just started to like, all right, I'm going to read this over again. So I started, after I read We Agnostics, I started from the beginning again because I had a different perception on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, my highlighter is just going crazy, right? I'm just highlighting all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I not see this before? But it's just like that mind change, that picking away at those negative things, or that ego, or that everything else that was in my head that was stopping me from really embracing the experience. Like, that's when it started to happen.
Wow, that's awesome. We used to do, and I'm curious to know what you think of this. It takes me back. I would do groups, with the women and stuff. And to me, it was always very special because I was raised by my mom. My mom is super, super strong, and I think about that, the stress, even with my wife. I know a lot of my kids' schoolings, a lot of these things kind of not necessarily just fall on her, but she is our rock. I'll just be 100%. She's the rock of the family, and I try my best as a husband to not be, one of those old school dudes from the 50s types of bullshit. I try and help with everything and with the schooling and everything, but I can only imagine the way that a mother must feel, once that substance is out of her body and she doesn't really know where she's going yet as far as recovery. Like, she's going to be 100% sober, still dealing with being in that delusion, as you say, and one of the things that I would always tell them is like, kids are definitely resilient. They're a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. I think that shame and that guilt, we hold on to it and make it feel like, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a horrible parent. My kid's not going to love me or whatever. But I always tell them, take this time in recovery for once to be selfish for yourself. You need it because when we're in our active addiction, we're selfish, but for a completely different reason, right?
100%.
So it's like when you come into recovery and you are actually taking that time for yourself, it seems like it's selfish, like it wasn't when you were using, but the outcome is completely different because this benefits everybody in your family. This benefits your husband, your kids. You know what I mean? So it's like what advice could you give, a mother that may be feeling like that doesn't feel like it's right to have to take that time away from her kids or from her family?
If I had to talk to a mom specifically, I'd say, like, I know it feels selfish, but like, this is for the better of the full picture. It's for the full picture. And it's like, if you're okay, your kids are going to be okay. If you're not okay, your kids aren't going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the truth. Like, they also feed off of our energy. And if there's not that good energy coming off of you, they're going to feel that. And even if it's not being said, even if actions aren't happening around them, I mean, they were inside of you at one point in time. They feel your energy radiates on them, and they will feel it.
That's
Take that time to really look at yourself, because it's going to be better for them in the long run. Even though it's like a month, 3 months, however long you're taking the time to, like, at least be in treatment, that's nothing compared to the time that you're going to have a beautiful experience with them once you're out of it.
That's awesome. I think it's true. I mean, it's beautiful to hear your story, yo, for real. Like, it's a pleasure to meet you. Like, thinking about that, I mean, I think back on the groups, we'd have mothers and fathers here during the holidays, during, Thanksgiving, these times that we're supposed to be around family. And honestly, for anybody listening, man, I mean, you just have to remember that you're not worth anything to your family when you're in the middle of your addiction. Like, you can't really offer anything to them. Take that time to get that out of your body. You, like you said, even if it's 6 months, even if it's a year, those moments of you being in their life, being able to remember those memories, being able to actually create those core memories and those experiences with your kid, it may take a little bit of time, but in comparison, it's like, it's totally worth it.
Yeah. It truly is. My situation with DCS didn't end great, but like, the pivotal moments that I still have with my kids whenever I get to see them is just extraordinary.
Yeah. And I'm sure just by, even having this conversation with you, you're a fighter, right?
Yeah.
But not just in the octagon, you know what I'm saying? You're whooping ass in life right now. So it's like, I know just by your energy that I'm sure you're never going to stop fighting for your babies.
No, I'm never going to stop, and, at 4 months sober, I found out that my rights were severed. Even though I went to treatment, it wasn't what they wanted. It was, you're not supposed to tell a sober person, hey, you got sober too late, but that's essentially what they told me in the courtroom. And, even when they told me that, I was like, I had already dove in so far into this program. I had already started to fill the hole inside of me that was missing from the recovery, from God, from all these different things, that when I had that perfect relapse ticket of, hey, your rights severed, so you really don't have to do this anymore, I had already started to find myself. I had already started to build a new life for myself. I had already started to love myself. That when I found that out, it was like, okay, this isn't the time to stop. This is the time to push harder.
There you go. That's what's up, man. And how long have you been sober now?
It's been 4 years.
This is for you right here. 4 years. I think that's awesome. I know you're working in the field right now. What type of things are you doing now to help uplift the community?
Oh, too many things.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so I mean, nowadays I work as an admissions coordinator. I worked my way I started working in treatment when I was 6 months and worked my way up to admissions, and I absolutely love that. I'm a co-director of a sober living.
That's awesome.
I also am part of the board for the sober softball community, so I travel and play sober softball. That athlete in me,
that's
right?
That's cool. Yeah, that's
so
what's
I
up.
travel at least 5 to 6 times a year to go play sober softball with people that are in AA, NA, all the A's.
Yeah.
All around the country, and I also am a part of a board that's opening up a new meeting hall in Chandler, Gilbert area.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. Lindy, I really want to thank you for driving all the way down here and coming and sharing your testimony. This has been a huge blessing for me as well to be able to hear that, being able to see that light inside of you, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great. I absolutely enjoyed this.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to our good friend Lindy one more time. Shout out to Garrett. Thank you so much, bro. I got to get you in here too, man.
Yeah, you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you share this with somebody. I think you said this earlier about the transparency, about, it's being open, being honest. That's how we help each other.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I hope and pray that whoever's listening to this on the other end, that this episode was able to help you. You guys continue to take care of yourselves. Much love. God bless you all, and we will definitely see you on the next one. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the Arcast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody you need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the Arcast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.